Is it going to work now? Hello. I don't know why, but for some reason when I first started the stream, Prism like closed itself or ended the stream all by itself. I don't even know what happened there. That was very weird. That was very strange. But it seems to be working. It seems to be working okay now. Yeah, it is very early. Oh, I've had a really bad sleeping schedule for a while, and I keep trying to fix it and failing. But yeah, here I am, ready to do a couple hours worth of streaming for you guys and have a good time. Give you guys a little bit of catching up on the news, you might say. Not sure exactly what we'll end up talking about, but we'll get there when we get there. For now, make sure you hit that like button, send it out to as many people as you can. Get the word out there, as they say. And we love you for it. Aw, thanks, Uncle Flanus. Uncle Flanus the Fladanus. 3 viewers. Look at me go. Also, what's up, Harper? I haven't seen you in here in a long time. But I'm glad to see you back in here. For once on this stream, we actually have some good news to talk about, but I'm going to wait for some people to get in here before we get all the way fully into it. Anderbingus? Anderbingus? What? Anderbingus? What? What are you telling me? What are you trying to communicate to my ears? To my delicate virgin ears? Vanderbengus. It sounds German. Gehen suche Anderbengus? Freiheit und Anderbengus? Yeah, my husband is a semi-driver now, so I've just been traveling a lot. Oh, fair enough. Probably having to sleep at very weird times as well, if you guys are like typically trying to sleep at the same times and stuff. Although if you're doing some of the driving, which I'm not sure if you are, but that's one of the things I always wanted to do whenever I was looking at that as a career choice. I thought it would be so cool if I could find a life partner that wanted to travel all the time and was down to like get their CDL too. Oh, that'd be the coolest thing ever. But I'm sure it doesn't work out like that for a lot of people. I'm sure they just probably bring their partners and spouses with them when they can for long periods, because it's just nice to have somebody else around, even if they're not going to be taking the wheel. Can I ask one question? You can ask as many questions as you want. The whole point of this stream is to have a conversation between me and you guys. I'm not. I haven't driven a car in 3 years. Dang, it's a lot of time. I couldn't go that long without driving a car. It would drive me insane. I genuinely enjoy driving. Although I don't enjoy it as much as I used to. I used to really get a kick out of really long drives, and I guess I still would if I got myself back into the mindset. But, you know, I did a pretty long drive here recently, and, well, it wasn't as fun as I remembered, but a lot of it was pretty enjoyable. So now that a few of you guys are in here, Donald Trump's petulance has backfired on him once again, and in this case has actually provided a benefit for the American people. So 10 days ago, the I believe it was 10 days ago, the House and Senate passed a bipartisan housing bill that was supposed to go to that did go to Trump's desk for either a veto or a signature. And there was a 10-day deadline for that to happen, and it happened a little over, 10 days ago. So as of now, it is law, because he did this petulant baby shit where he was like, I'm not going to sign this legislation unless they pass the Save America Act, which is basically the Let Republicans Fuck with the Election Act. Yeah, he was basically like, unless we get 10 Democrats to completely betray their own party and vote for my terrible legislation, I'm not gonna sign this. And I think he did that under the genuine misapprehension that such a course of action would prevent that legislation from being able to become law. I don't think Donald Trump actually knows the legal system well enough to know that that's not how it works, that it doesn't just not become law or just sit in a state of limbo because he does nothing, that it will eventually just become law with or without his signature as long as he doesn't veto it. So he didn't veto it, and I think that there might be some high-powered Republican lawmakers that are starting to realize the Mad King syndrome that Donald Trump has, because I don't think they told him about this. I don't think they told him about that. I think he's been getting, told that, listen, Mr. President, if you don't sign it, nothing can happen. It's not going to become law or anything. It'll be perfectly fine. Don't even worry about it. You can keep them hanging for so long, Mr. President. And they literally just fed him this line of bullshit because he's a retard that only watches Fox News and does not critically think at all. So he just took it face value. And now we've actually managed to see the biggest housing bill that's been passed in 30 years or something. Bipartisan too. Lots of good things in there. Fucking ironically enough and weirdly enough, there's a couple of good things from the Republican side. There's a couple of good things from the Democratic side, and it's stuff that, overall, a lot of it I agree with from what I've seen being covered in, PBS and NPR and shit like that. It seems like it's a pretty good piece of legislation. I'm sure there are some writers on there that I'm not going to be a big fan of, but if any of them were so horrible and drastic as to warrant my personal attention, I'm sure I would have been made aware of them by now. So it just seems like a really fucking awesome opportunity to, as the American people, rejoice that maybe some people are starting to see the light in the places of power where they really need to be understanding just how bad things are going to get if they don't step in and wrest the reins from the Mad King. Stop spamming the chat. Stop spamming the chat. So the bill will lower housing costs? Not immediately, but that's the plan. I don't know if it actually will lower housing costs, but it does, there are definitely things in there which can lead to the lowering of housing costs. There are definitely things in that bill that, with a little bit of cooperation from local and state authorities, could definitely lead to a lowering of housing costs, in different parts of America. So yes, in theory. But one of the things that, like the article I was reading, I think from CBS maybe, or CNBC, I'm not sure which one it was, I don't remember, but one of the things it was pointing out was that there are economic experts who are pointing out that there's a timeline to these kinds of things. Many times a development can take longer than the elected term of an elected official, right? Like, it can take 10 years sometimes to build a big apartment complex from the moment you start, like, the beginning of construction to the moment it's on the market. That can sometimes happen within two different people's terms, three different people's terms, depending on what kind of terms you're talking about. So it will take a while for these changes to take effect, sadly, but they are things that, like I said, with the cooperation, which is another thing these articles pointed out, relying on the kind of feedback of some of these experts and shit, these think tank people, pointed out that, like the federal government has only so much power over housing prices, and this is like a big necessary first step, but it's also going to require like local, like municipalities and shit are going to have to like start to, if they want to reduce the cost of housing in their area, they're going to start to have to consider like creative zoning laws, or specialty tax rates to encourage building in that area, or they're going to have to like speed up their permitting process, or they're going to have to offer some kind of incentive. Like, it's still going to require movement on the part of individual municipalities and some of these state governments to make it fully effective. But even without them, I think it will have at least a measurable effect. I don't exactly know how big that effect will be if we assume no cooperation, and I certainly don't know how big it would be if we assume tons of cooperation. But it's supposed to, and there's certainly things in there that could lead to that. The government can only do so much. Well, yeah, exactly. The federal government especially, right? Because the art of governance at the federal level is like a delicate balance between not overcomplicating life for people in their everyday and not intruding in it too much, but also setting standards and kind of directing the country in a specific way and preventing human rights violations and shit like that. So it's a delicate tightrope balance to walk. I wouldn't want to be a federal lawmaker, I'll tell you that much. Well, maybe I'd want to be one of our current crop of fucking federal lawmakers, because it doesn't seem like there's very much to their job. But I think ideally, a federal lawmaker should be one of the hardest jobs out there. At this point, you don't qualify for human rights? Okay, Tater Wedge in the chat says I don't qualify for human rights. Subscribe to my channel to say I don't qualify for human rights, yeah. That's a compelling argument, I gotta give you. Their only purpose is to tell us as stupid adult citizens that we are morons that can't handle life without their great intellect and guidance, no matter the party or let. I don't think that's true. Like, I feel like that's like maybe a good summation of current trends in American electoral politics, but like politics in general and governance as a general concept is just the idea that societies, in order to remain functional and efficient, have to get together and decide either collectively or in some fashion what laws they are going to be governed by, right? Like, that is the idea. The idea is that in order for a society to function, there has to be a framework that is widely agreed upon. It can either be widely agreed upon because it is constructed by the people who are governed by it, in the case of democracies, or it can be widely agreed upon because it is insisted upon by the threat of violence, in the case of fascist dictatorships, authoritarian regimes, etc. Just tuning in. What happened with housing law and moving in the future? Well, not much has happened yet, but a big housing law just got passed. It's the biggest housing law that's happened in like 30 years. It's bipartisan, lots of fucking different things in there. There's some things that are a little bit worrisome because I worry what they could mean for the product that people might be getting in the future, but for the most part, it's stuff that I think makes a lot of sense. Like there's a provision in there that makes it a lot easier for you to get a permit without an environmental check if there are two properties adjoining the to be developed property that have already had like a recent environmental check and passed, which I think is just like, I don't know, makes sense to me. Like if you've already got two places right fucking adjacent to it that are fine and they pass, then okay, seems like that property should as well. Makes sense to me. Will definitely make the process easier. But ultimately, one of the things that is like holding up house building in America is like the cost of materials and the cost of labor. And the cost of labor doesn't need to go down because these people are paid well and for a good reason, right? It's a hard job they're being asked to do. But the cost of materials is one of those things that with better trade relationships or with better like even like protectionist measures here in the US, we could abate that. And honestly, I'm a proponent of the nationalization of housing, so I think that a lot of these problems could just be subverted by throwing endless amounts of reappropriated wealth from the billionaire class at it, but you know. Okay, tell us, instead of Trump, what would Kamala have done for us? She probably would have done longer lasting tax relief for the working class. Probably would have expanded care under the ACA and would have definitely continued funding the provisions that were up for funding that Donald Trump decided to either let die or actively cut out. She wouldn't have cut millions of people off of Medicaid and SNAP. I can think of a lot of things Kamala Harris might have done differently than Donald Trump that might have left us in a better position today, frankly. And I'm not even someone who likes Kamala Harris. I was actively pointing out the fact that she is a warmonger, that she was a fucking prosecutor and made a ton of her fucking living and career off of locking up people that look just like her and come from the same kind of communities as her for shit that she jokes around about having done. I don't even like Kamala Harris, but to pretend that Donald Trump is a superior leader is to be a fucking retard. And you're a homosexual Democrat. I am bisexual, number one, and not a Democrat, number two. I was actually advocating for people to vote third party in 2024. But even I recognize that Kamala Harris would have been a superior leader to Donald Trump. Do you prefer Islam or Jewishness? I prefer secular humanism. Tater is such a cute name. Too bad Tater has tater brains. I know, right? You're every that... Wait, what? You're every that's what's wrong with America. You're an illiterate moron that doesn't even set a fucking profile picture for themselves, and you want to tell me I'm what's wrong with America when you're part of the 60% of Americans who read at or below a 4th grade level? Can you get so for real with me right now? You want to come at me about how much damage I'm doing to society when you're part of the illiterate fucking 60%? If I handed you your own rental document right now, you would not be able to read it back to me and explain every fucking tenant of it. You know why? because most rental documents are written at an 8th grade level, and you write like you read at a 3rd grade level. So if you want to talk about the damage I do to society, I read, I help those around me, I donate fucking all the time to people's GoFundMes and to charitable organizations and to unions and shit like that. I donate my time when I can. I advocate publicly for the things I believe in, which are pro-human. What do you do? I'd rather an illiterate person babysit my kid before you do. Oh my god. Let me read this. I'm sure the rest of the world would too. You are engaging in a classic fallacy, the name of which escapes me, but it's the idea that it's this incredibly narcissistic idea that your personal philosophy is shared by the entire rest of the world, despite that not being fucking backed up by the statistics. So let's just fucking read some statistics real quick. Pew Research, how many Americans support trans adults? Okay, so according to Pew Research Center, 64% of U.S. adults favor laws protecting transgender adults from discrimination in housing, jobs, and public spaces. Additionally, 81% of adults believe that there is at least some discrimination against trans people in society today. So I'm going to read that again. 64%, so 6 out of 10, a little over 6 out of 10, of U.S. adults favor laws protecting transgender individuals from discrimination in housing, jobs, and public spaces. So it does not sound to me, based on the statistics we just read off from Pew Research Center, that you are correct about that. It sounds to me like you've pulled something out of your ass and you've committed the fallacy of my fucking thoughts are shared by all of reality and everyone else in it because I'm a solipsistic moron. It's not a good way to go about deciding how you feel about issues. It's way better to just look at the scientific consensus, try and make sense out of it to the best of your ability. If you can't, consider reading. Start with The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway, keep reading things around that size and around that level. Eventually you'll be able to make it to Lord of the Rings, and eventually once you get up there, you can start reading really complex and dense work. And I can only hope for your sake that you get to the point where you can read something like War and Peace, Phoebe, would you rather be anything that isn't straight in Africa where everyone instantly knows? Okay, so let's just look at fucking African culture. Because you seem to think that African culture is a monolith. By the way, there's a train about to pass, so if I have to shut up for a second, you know why. Because I don't want to compete with the train. And it's getting so close that I feel like as soon as I start talking and reading this little overview off, Alrighty, so I've got this article from Stonewall, UK, and it's called African Sexuality and the Legacy of Imported Homophobia. I'm going to read this off for you. In June, Botswana overturned colonial-era laws which criminalized homosexuality, with the judge, Michael Laburu, declaring that the anti-sodomy laws are a British import and were developed, quote, without the consultation of local peoples, end quote. It was viewed as a massive success and a historic moment across the continent. Despite this, the more than half of the countries in Africa outlaw homosexuality, with 4 enforcing the death penalty. At a time where we see more and more countries worldwide becoming progressive with regard to LGBT issues, why does Africa still maintain their anti-LGBT stance? Is homosexuality rather than homophobia a, quote, Western import, end quote, as claimed by Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni? Of course not. There's a direct correlation between countries which belong to the Commonwealth, and therefore have previously been under British rule, and countries that still have homophobic, biphobic, and or transphobic legislature in their constitutions. 25% of the world's population, 2.4 billion people, currently live in a country belonging to the Commonwealth. However, they make up a disproportionately large 50% of countries that still criminalize homosexuality. Interesting. But this phenomenon is specific to those under British rule. By the 13th century in France, punishments for male homosexuality include castration for the first offense, but the French repealed their anti-sodomy laws after the First French Revolution in 1750, 2 centuries prior to the British in 1967. So within the lifetime of a lot of old people. This is then echoed in La Francophonie nations. Out of 54 member states, only 33% of these criminalize homosexuality in comparison to 66% of Commonwealth nations. Prior to European colonization, throughout the African continent, we see far different, more relaxed attitudes towards sexual orientation and gender identity. As far back as 2400 BC, tombs have been excavated in ancient Egypt with 2 men's bodies, Neankumunum and Knomotep, embracing each other as lovers. In addition to their acceptance of same-sex relationships, ancient Egyptians, similar to other civilizations at the time, not only acknowledge a third gender, but venerate it. And many deities were portrayed androgynously, and goddesses such as Mut, the goddess of motherhood, literally translation, mother, and Sekhmet, goddess of war, are often depicted as women with erect penises. I'm going to repeat that again, just in case you missed it. Prior to European colonization, throughout the African continent, we see far different, more relaxed attitudes towards sexual orientation and gender identity. Far back as 2400 BC, tombs have been excavated in ancient Egypt with 2 men's bodies, Neankhnum and Knomotep, embracing each other as lovers. In addition to their acceptance of same-sex relationships, ancient Egyptians, similar to other civilizations at the time, not only acknowledge a third gender, but venerate it. Many deities were portrayed androgynously, and goddesses such as Mut, the goddess of motherhood, literally translation is mother, and Sekhmet, goddess of war, are often depicted as women with erect penises. This was not unique to Egypt or this time period. In the 16th century, the Mbangala people of Angola had men in women's apparel with whom they kept amongst their wives. Once again, this was not unique to Europe. This was not unique to Egypt or this time period. In the 16th century, the Mbangala people of Angola had, quote, men in women's apparel with whom they kept amongst their wives, end quote. In contrast, King Henry VIII had just signed the Buggery Act in 1533 in England, which criminalized sex between 2 males. The last men to be sentenced to death by hanging in England were in 1835 for engaging in homosexual sex. Whilst at the same time there was an openly gay monarch, King Mwanga II of Buganda, present-day Uganda, who actively opposed Christianity and colonialism. The Igbo and Yoruba tribes, found mostly in present-day Nigeria, did not have a binary of genders and typically did not assign gender to babies at birth, and instead waited until later life. Similarly, the Dagaba people, present-day Ghana, assign gender not based on one's anatomy, but rather the energy one presents. In the royal palaces, man, what a fucking beautiful world that would be. In the royal palaces of northern Sudan, daughters were sometimes given slave girls for sex. which is fucked up, but also, like, very, like, open to the idea of same-sex relationships. For centuries across the African continent, there was a completely different attitude towards sexual and gender identities. Many African countries did not see gender as a binary in the way that their European colonizers did, nor did they correlate anatomy to gender identity. In no African country prior to colonization do we see any persecution of LGBT individuals because of their sexuality, nor any anti-LGBT laws. So how, despite a very relaxed attitude towards homosexuality and gender fluidity for almost all of its recorded history, has Africa become one of the most difficult continents to be LGBT in? The answer is that colonization and the spread of fundamentalist Christian attitudes from the British meant that much of Africa lost its previous cultural attitude towards sexual orientation and gender identity, and were forced to adopt, quote, new values from British colonizers in the 19th and 20th centuries. Homophobia was legally enforced by colonial administrators and Christian missionaries. In 1910, Christians made up about 9% of the population of sub-Saharan Africa. By 2010, the figure had leapt to 63%. Anti-LGBT laws were not only written into constitutions, but also into the minds of many African people, and after the passing of several generations, this has become dogma. While many of the countries under British rule are now independent, the majority who still criminalize homosexuality, including Jamaica and Uganda, have carried over these laws from the colonial era. Generations later, many Africans now believe that an anti-gay attitude is one that is a part of their culture, so much so that former Zimbabwean President Mugabe labeled homosexuality as a white disease. The association of homosexuality as something, quote, Western is echoed throughout the ex-Commonwealth, and particularly in African and Caribbean nations. For many who had their lives and cultures stripped from them by the British, Westernness is to be treated with suspicion, and it's essential to hold on to any part of themselves and their culture they can. This, combined with the fact that Western countries have threatened to deny aid to these countries unless they conform to their ideals, has hindered the fight for LGBT rights in African countries. For instance, when ex-Prime Minister David Cameron threatened to withdraw aid from Uganda as they were not adhering to proper human rights, the presidential advisor responded with, quote, but this kind of ex-colonial mentality of saying, you do this or I withdraw my aid, will definitely make people extremely uncomfortable with being treated like children. It is clear that top-down reform, with the Western world leading the way, is not going to be the road that Africans take to change their anti-LGBT laws. Skepticism toward the West and homophobia are too closely intertwined. Rejecting pro-LGBT legislation is rejecting neocolonialism and is in favor of African nationalism, self-determination, and self-worth. Unfortunately, African homophobia is a tricky mix of anti-neocolonialism, politics, and religion, made worse by the HIV/AIDS crisis. This crisis has led Africans to associate HIV and AIDS with and death as a consequence of being gay, similar to American attitudes towards HIV and AIDS during the United States AIDS crisis of the 1980s. So what is the future for LGBT rights in Africa? In many countries, despite the legacy of colonization, citizens are taking a more autonomous stance on LGBTQ+ legislature, with the queer communities taking the lead instead of external pressures from the West. Across the world, countries that have improved their LGBT rights records have done so because of the hard work, organizing, and leadership of local LGBT groups and communities, and the case of Africa is no different. Enforcing top-down change from the West would do little to change the attitudes of Africans towards homosexuality. This is a struggle that must be led by local LGBT communities who know best what they need and how to fight for it. The references for this article are many and varied, but we can give you any of them if you'd like to. Give you just a few of them. We got Unspoken Facts and History of Homosexualities in Africa, Mark Precht in 2008. We got Bisexuality and the Politics of Normal in African Ethnography, also from Mark Precht in 2006. You got How Britain's Exported Homophobia Continues to Drive Health Inequalities Amongst LGBTQI Communities from Annabelle Soamino in 2019. We could go on and on and on. There's a lot of references that this article quotes and uses to build its case. But the point is that Africans, by and large, are not a monolith, number one, and are actively working to improve the situation for LGBT rights in their communities. There are places where they are receiving a lot of pushback, either from their country's ties to Western powers that want them to continue outlawing homosexuality, and some from just the African equivalent of good old boys clubs, where it's kind of hard to change the leadership. But for the most part, progress is being made, and people are beginning to be, more accepting the way they as we can clearly tell from all the evidence, were before colonization. So to the degree that people in Africa may be homophobic, it is an explicit and obvious result of Western colonization, Western Christian colonization to be specific. If you feel like you learned anything from my reading of that article, if you've learned anything from this stream we've had so far, please consider signing up for the membership or donating through Super Chat or my Cash App. That's down below. I really appreciate donations through that because I can use them instantly and YouTube doesn't take a fee. Either way, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you guys watching. And let's dip back into the argument now that we've presented some facts. See, she's blaming it all on white Christians. Yeah, because white Christians are to blame. Yes. As we just read, white Christians are to blame. Yes. I'm sorry, do you have a problem with facts? I'm afraid to tell you facts don't care about your feelings. Sorry, bud. Facts don't care about your feelings. And we just read a really long article with a bunch of references at the bottom. And I told you the name and the publication, so you can look at it yourself if you don't believe me. You can read everything I just read out to you by yourself, for yourself, and go look at the fucking the references that it makes too. All that's available for you. Google is a very powerful thing. I can't help but find it funny that there are people still in here arguing with me when the article literally starts out with a quote from an African leader about how anti-sodomy laws are a British import. So apparently you guys don't even want to listen to the Africans about this thing. You just want to use them as your little tulpa doll. You just want to use them as your puppet for homophobia. You just want to basically try and inject some kind of race war dialogue into an intersectional feminist anarchists like open discussion about the problems facing our world and like queer rights and how that affects people globally and here at home and shit. Do you think I won't ban your stupid bullshit? Out of here. Who gives a fuck what the Africans think? I wasn't the one who brought them up. It was somebody in my chat. People in here are so original. I know. And by that, I'm sure you mean the least original fucks to ever set foot in a live chat. You're claiming the Africans feel this way? No. You're being a reductive moron so you can set up a straw man because you think that'll be easier to defeat than what I actually said. What I actually said is that LGBTQ rights are an evolving thing across the African continent, that African people are not a monolith, and that queer African people are actively working to make the situation better across the continent. And that's also what the article verifies and backs up, by the way. Oh, this is rich. This is rich. I have no doubt that an African said all that. What I don't trust is that the Africans who make it to peer-reviewed, that make it to a peer-reviewed paper are a decent representation of Africa. Why is that? What do you think the average home in Africa is? This tends to be a revealing question. What do you think the average home in Africa looks like? Mud hut, wood. I'm looking for one person's response. Like ours, but made of cinder block. Once again, I'm looking for a specific person's answer. I don't feel like they're going to give it to me, though. I really don't feel like they're going to give it to me. I asked Dustin Borderlands specifically, what do you think an average home in Africa looks like? because he said something that implies that it's particularly rare for an African to make it to the point where they can contribute to a peer-reviewed paper, which is not even the premise of like the Stonewall UK article that we just read. It's like a comprehensive review of data that we have from studies that were conducted in the region, from like case reviews, from oh, what is it called? Fuck, that thing where you basically do a study looking at all the studies. I can't think of what it's called, but you get what I mean. It's not like it was like somebody in Africa that it's not like a peer-reviewed paper. It's an article in Stonewall UK that cites its sources and is sourced from like reliable dissertations on the topic, likely from people that are anthropologists doing their level-headed best according to the scientific method to get a close approximation of what people think and how things are progressing. And like I said, some of the stuff that was in there is direct quotes of how people feel in the region. So it's like, I don't know how you're going to argue with that. You misunderstood. I am saying that the academics won't allow it, not that Africans are incapable of it. Oh, okay. Well, the way you worded it definitely makes it sound like, it definitely made it sound like it was a capability issue. Yeah, I don't think that's it either. Number one, the article that I was reading is not, I don't even know if it was written by an African author. It seems to me like it's a correlation of data that's pretty widely available to anyone who looks at the research, but I can find it again real quick. Let's see here. Who's the author? By Leah Buckle. Sounds like a pretty British name to me, man. Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, it seems like she's like a researcher that covers like a pretty wide variety of topics, but I don't know. I didn't see anything that indicated some clear and obvious like slant or this bitch is fucking paid off or whatever. So I feel like people are just trying to fucking poke holes in the fucking narrative because they have like themselves a narrative that is easy to poke holes in. But in this case, we're literally looking at an article that cites a bunch of different sources that all of which we could look at and would say the same fucking thing. It's citing leaders whose quotes can be easily verified. And it's also talking about something that you can verify yourself. You can find people from Africa doing LGBTQ fucking activism. You can find them doing it online. Like, we live in a global world now. Africa, just to fucking clear up anybody who didn't understand why I asked the African house question, it's because not all of Africa is mud huts, guys. I know that you guys are used to seeing like specific cuts of footage on Fox News that depicts all of the African continent as if it's some poor shithole. But the fact of it is, an average African house doesn't look that different from an average American house. Honestly, especially in the poorer regions of America. Like, they look pretty much the same. Like, yeah, okay, maybe there's some fucking differences in the general fucking level of, like, obviously there are differences in, like, poverty and shit across the, like, African continent versus North America and shit. But when it comes to, like, this idea that Africa is, like, uniquely primitive or something, or undeveloped, it's just a myth. It's a colonialist myth. Does not reflect the actual reality of people who live there. Like, yeah, they tend to be poor. They tend to have older things. They tend to have to work a hell of a lot harder for the same kind of stuff that Americans get for comparatively a lot less effort. That doesn't mean that they're still living in mud huts and herding buffalo for a living. There are some nomadic tribes left There's some, you know, like hunter-gatherer-esque, I guess you might say, kind of tribes, but pretty much all of them at this point practice some variety of agrarian life as well. So, like, I don't know. Even the people that you would point out in Africa and be like, those are uncivilized. I don't know. They don't seem any more uncivilized to me than the Amish, which for some reason Christians have no problem with, probably because they're white. Any thoughts on cannabis-induced psychosis/depression? I'm sure it happens to some people. I'm sure it's probably going to go up in occurrence with legalization to some degree at first, but I don't really think it's a big long-term issue. Because I think with a lot of things, you know, there'll be an initial wave of interest. Like this has happened every time weed has been legalized in pretty much any state. There's like an initial couple years where there's like this big wave of interest where some people start smoking and they become like, oh man, I'm going to start smoking, you know, every other day and I'm never going to quit, right? And most of the people fucking, you know, they try it and they're like, okay, well, whatever. And then maybe they do it every so often socially, or they'll get some pot if they're in pain or something. But I feel like there'll probably be a rash of people experiencing these kinds of like symptoms at a higher level for a little bit after you introduce it, and then after it becomes normalized in the culture and ceases to be this weird taboo that people care about, the like incentive structures to like use it overly heavily recreationally kind of start to dissipate a little bit. Part of the reason why, in other words, part of the reason why it's so fun and cool to smoke weed with your friends in the garage is because it's not legal, right? That's part of the fun, is because you're doing something illicit, but it really shouldn't be illicit. And, you know, once you legalize it, that means really, like, there has to be more binding the social group together. And it gets better interactions out of people. Same reason why bars became safer and better environments after fucking Prohibition ended. The era of the speakeasy was not an era of well fucking kept bars, okay? It was an era of violence. Oh. Can you play your guitar? For $20 or more on Cash App, I could perhaps be persuaded. But you guys ain't don't know shit tonight. So I'm not feeling particularly generous. I smoke marijuana over pain management? Yeah, lots of people do. It's very similar to the reason I smoke. I smoke primarily for mood regulation, secondarily for pain regulation, and third, because sometimes it's fun to get high. Yeah, Dustin, I've been reading your argument for the last couple minutes, and I just don't buy it. Nope. Because, like, okay, number one, the West is not a real thing. Like, if you're using it in a very general sense to describe like the economics, maybe it makes more sense. But when you're talking about social issues, man, the West is widely divided on a whole lot of stuff. Because you got to remember, the West includes America and Canada and all the countries of Western Europe, and some of the countries even like in Eastern Europe, and kind of like the fringes get counted sometimes. It's also like a shifty definition that just isn't like super reliable on its own terms. But leaving all that aside, the West broadly, I wouldn't argue, is like pro-gay, and if it is like becoming pro-gay, it's only been... Okay, hold on. That was a particularly loud horn. Anyway, to the degree that the West can be considered a monolith, I don't think that it should be considered like monolithically pro-queer. The United States still struggles mightily in terms of its governance at the state and federal level with queer acceptance and with protecting queer people. And to the degree that the West has been becoming more culturally accepting of queerness, number one, it's largely been, in consequence of exposure to, number one, it's been in consequence of spreading technology and the democratization of philosophy and shit like that, and advocacy. But it's also been by exposure to different ideas about gender and sexuality from different indigenous cultures and different cultures around the planet. And number two, it's been a phenomenon, like acceptance of queer people in the West, insofar as that exists, has only really been a phenomenon for maybe 60 years. Because even after Britain got rid of its sodomy laws in 1967, not that long ago, even after that, there were still homophobes in Great Britain. There are still homophobes in Great Britain today. Even after America repealed the last of its sodomy laws, there's still homophobia all across this country. Even though transgender people like myself are able to be more visible now than we used to be, there are still, and in fact there are growing discriminatory measures against us in a number of southern and midwestern states. So the idea that the West is uniformly, monolithically pro-queer or anything else is completely stupid and not reflective of reality. And number two, to the degree that the West is exporting pro-queer values now, the dominant thought pattern among people that are pro-queer in the West is universal acceptance. Make room for the different ideas that different cultures have of these things. Queer advocates don't have one specific, narrow, fucking rigid framework by which they think that gender and sex are correlated and socially prescribed. It's not how it works. The scientific understanding of gender is that it is a complex thing that has biological ties that we don't yet fully understand, that is distinct from but related to sex, that lots of different cultures have lots of different ways that they see these people, and that they see people who fall outside of the gender spectrum that they have in their societies. The farther back in history you go, the more queer acceptance you see, and the less that certain mind viruses that have taken hold throughout history have had their effect on a given region, the more you see a true acceptance of people and their freedom to associate and love who they want and be who they want and be amongst the social groups that they actually adhere to. I miss the dislike button. It still exists, you're just too stupid to find it. Why is this such a big deal? If people hate, just ignore. They want notice and recognition for their hate. They don't actually hate. These people love me. My monthly viewership numbers are insane. Let me just give you guys some of my back end numbers. I think it'll blow your minds. So yeah, over the so we got around 320,000 views over the last 28 days. Over the last 90 days, we got 739,000 views, so a little less than 740,000. Over the last year, the channel has gotten 5 million views. So these people fucking love me. They come back time and time and time and time again because they are not content to merely sit by and hate from the sidelines, because they don't actually hate. In many cases, they are attracted to me. In some cases, they wish they could be me in some weird way, where they wish they could be more open about their own gender identity, but they can't because of whatever weird social situation they're in. There are lots of weird, different ways that people go about projecting their own inequities in life and their own inability to like be themselves, and it usually manifests as bigotry. Dog, no one wants to be a fat 400-pound confused he, she. I'm not confused at all, and my pronouns are she, her. As far as the 400-pound thing, I've actually been losing weight over the last 2 years. Something you can probably not relate on, considering that your profile picture is not actually you, but rather some picture you scraped off the internet, which probably means that you weigh more than my fat ass does. You want to talk about how much I weigh when your ass needs that freight train over there to haul your ass back and forth from work. Come on now. Be so for real. Nobody with an anime avatar, or a cartoon avatar, and no fucking PFP at all gets to shit on anyone else on the internet for their weight or looks. You know why? You know why? Because it screams insecurity. It's like when people make fun of my teeth, but they ain't got a profile picture, or it's a fucking PFP of some anime or something. It's like, yeah, I see. Motherfucker has probably not got a tooth in their head that they had when they were in high school. Motherfucker probably's got so many cavities in their fucking mouth that they can't even count them anymore. Meanwhile, me? Teeth are ugly, but they're all there. No cavities. No root canals needed done. I don't know, man. I'm 14 years old. No, this is a fucking 18 and up chat. Get out of here, kid. Get out of here, baby. I'm not going to have a political, religious, or philosophical argument with a 14-year-old. You don't know shit about anything. You can't give birth, you're not a female. I think you have a misunderstanding as to what transgender people are going through. You know? I think you just have a fundamental a fundamental misunderstanding of what people like me are. I know that I was born assigned male at birth. I know that I have a penis. That doesn't change the fact that I'm a woman. I wish you and your family well in this rough time in our history. Well, I appreciate it. My family's been going through some fucking tragedy of our own lately, so I appreciate it. Really enjoyed the guitar the other night. You were like, I didn't know I could do that song, but I think I did a pretty good job. You did. Oh, well, thank you. I don't even remember what song it was now. I don't even remember what song it was. Putting a dress on doesn't make me a woman. No, putting a dress on doesn't make me a woman. Most of my wardrobe is not dresses. What makes me a woman is the, unalienable knowledge that I am one. Literally, knowledge that has, followed me and dogged me since I was a kid. That made no sense until I learned the word transgender and realized that my experience had words to describe it. Play the guitar, you got money? Well, I said $20 or more on Cash App. Not $5 in Super Chats. I do appreciate the $5, though. Active PSYOP victim, says the motherfucker that's literally a member of a right-wing PSYOP. You're literally if you're calling me a PSYOP because I'm trans, then you are literally a victim of a fucking Epstein-created, fucking Steve Bannon-endorsed, fucking 4chan PSYOP. Good job. You've been played by the Epstein class. You've been played by literal evil pedophiles with billions of dollars. Good job! That face when you realize homophobia and transphobia in the modern day is mostly a psyop from Epstein and fucking Steve Bannon. Epstein literally worked with 4chan. Yup. Yep. Just gonna say, we might go ahead and turn on members only mode here in a minute, since the viewers are already going down a little bit. Smoke on camera and state that it's cannabis? Huh. Yeah, sure, I'll do that. Transformers belong in asylum under lock and key. Why would you put the big robots away? Well, what did the big robots do? Weren't the people who wanted to lock up the Transformers the bad guys in that movie? Members only, then you'll lose your entire chat. I won't lose the viewers, though. That's the beauty of it. You think I give a shit about the really, seriously, do you think I give a shit about the retarded drivel that has been scrolling through the vast majority of my chat for the last few minutes? No. And to the degree that I do, people will pay to chat. Thank you, Nanbot, for the 5 gifted memberships. And with that, we will go ahead and turn it to membership only mode. There we go. And I guess I'll respond to a few of the comments that got sent before we turned it on. I'm having trouble understanding why so many people are taking their time to rip on you. Thanks for you for being so articulate. I'm so sorry about the jerks. Don't worry about it. I monetize these people. These people are a fundamental part of my monetization and revenue stream. They're too retarded to realize it, and no matter how many times I tell them that, they don't leave. So I just say it openly all the time, and I have been for the last year. But yeah, this is like a part of the cycle. I go live, a bunch of retarded transphobes come by to say retarded transphobe bullshit. People sign up to the membership to show support in the face of hatred. Some people super chat to show support in the face of hatred. Some people super chat to be hateful. And all the while, I'm sitting there raking in the dough, all while making actual leftist advocacy and content that entertains people, that makes them angry, that makes them think. Pretty cool job, in my opinion. I love the hate members. It's so much better than regular hate watchers, lol. I know. Somebody earlier was in here being absolutely just dumb as shit, saying something like, oh, what are you afraid you're going to get banned off of YouTube? It's like, motherfucker, that is not how smoking on camera on YouTube works. Like, yeah, you can't just, like, sit on YouTube smoking weed recreationally and being like, ah, yes, I'm smoking weed to have fun. I'm so fucking high. Yeah. But even if you do that, you're probably just going to get age-gated these days. And if you, like, are smoking weed, you can talk about it if you're doing it in the context of making, like, an informative video. Like, if you're talking about how medical cannabis helps you. Like, I could make a video where I literally, like, smoked the whole time and said that exact phrase in the video. And if it was framed around how medical cannabis helps me, it would be perfectly allowed within YouTube's fucking community guidelines and everything else. And it might not even get age gated because it's meant to be informative. Ooh, gifted sub for me. Hell yeah, Kyle. Good to see it. You're up so late / early. Yeah, it's up late for me. I don't know. I did a lot tonight, honestly. I got a lot done, and I feel good about it. So I'm not, like, hating on myself or anything. But I definitely do need to try and fix my sleep schedule somehow. Because it's just not good for me the way I've been running at it, you know? But I did get my fan cleaned today. Because the fan, I don't think that fan had ever been deep cleaned in its life. And over the last, I don't know, year or so of it being in here and running most of that time, it had just gotten filthy, absolutely filthy. But now it's fucking squeaky clean. Now it looks perfect. See? It looks so nice and new now. Okay. And here we have the cannabis plant, the powerhouse of the stonochondria. Yeah. Well, see, that might be stretching it a little. That might be going a little far. But whatever. Mostly, like, honestly, even if you're, like, casually smoking on camera, if you're not, like, glorifying it and stuff and not talking about it, you can mostly get away with it, and sometimes YouTube will just age gate you. But, you know, it just depends. Either way, I think it's hilarious that somebody thinks I'm that fucking stupid. I also think it's stupid if someone would actually get banned over such a thing, because you could hypothetically lie, right? You could just be doing a bit, right? What, would you have to put up the satire banner? Satire, satire. Warning, this is satire. Man, I hope they get Arc Forever back up. Just got a Fisher Price pipe that blows bubbles. Yeah, that'd be funny. That would be good to have. Ooh, I got a message from somebody on Tinder. Neat. Let's see here. Is there any updates? Any updates? Any updates? Damn, still down. It was an hour ago. No updates. Motherfuckers. Okay. Well, progress is being made on the API, and that's good. Man, I hope they're able to work this shit out. It's gonna suck if they've like all these like little art clusters and shit have to change how they work because of fucking dumbass studio wildcard. Especially because from what I can tell from the modder community, it's like they're trying to solve something for which there is no real fix other than like good server-side plugins, frankly. It's funny, right? Like the best things that you can do, or like, they could implement things, but it's just stuff that they're reticent to implement probably because it would damage some different servers' experience and shit. But like there are ways, like there are tons of unofficial server clusters that are really, really, really good at catching cheaters and people that are doing hacks and shit. There's tons of plugins that are meant just for the purpose. And so it just seems to me like they have shot themselves in the foot trying to do something that was meant to improve quality of life, and it's actually kind of like crashed quality of life for a lot of people. What happened now? So Arc, Arc got a server-side update a while back that did not include the .pdb file. And because it did not include the .pdb file, a lot of plugins stopped working, and they didn't have the functions mapped out so that they could, just go in and fix them real quick in an afternoon and be done with it, right? And the reason why Studio Wildcard has said they did this was to reduce like cheating and hacking and shit, but it has also like affected the Arc API, which is like this unofficial project that backs up a ton of plugins and stuff like that for server-side shit for Arc Survival Evolved and Ascended. And because the API is so reliant on that PDB file and broke when it released without it, they have had to kind of like start reverse engineering a lot of this stuff and kind of rebuilding it, and like they're trying to work on a long-term fix that makes it so they don't really need the PDB file to make continuous updates, but it's just a grueling process from what I can tell. I wish them a lot of luck in their efforts, though. I would not want to be in their position. No PBD file? That's not very value-tainment of them. No. No, definitely not. Yeah. Sucks. But it's it's a what can you do type of situation. There's really literally nothing I can do about it. There's nothing pretty much anybody can do about it at this point. Except just the people who are involved in the plugins and the ASA API and shit. They're working on it hard, but all of us, like end users and shit, we're just kind of like sitting around with our thumbs up our ass till things get up and going enough for unofficial clusters to start coming back online. Official clusters don't have to worry about this, but they also don't have ORP. And I am simply unwilling to play on an ARC server that doesn't have ORP of at least some form. ORP stands for offline raid protection, if you're wondering. I call it employed people mode. Yeah, I prefer to play on employed people mode in ARC, because, like, not only do I have this stream where I regularly spend, like, you know, between 2 to 6 hours entertaining you guys, but I've been going on more shows lately. I was just on the Drunken Peasants the other day. You guys should check that out if you haven't already. It's Chaos in the Life of Brett Keane, or something like that, I think it's called. It's one of their more recent streams. It's got like 3.6 thousand views, I think, at this point. So I've been going on other shows, but I've also just had a ton of stuff to do around the house. And I pretty much always do, because I'm a pretty studious person that tries to fucking stay up on her chores and make things look nice and keep things looking nice. And I've got shit that I've been working on. It's just like, fuck, I've got a life. I can't spend 8 hours a day playing ARC most days. I can maybe do that twice a week. And then, you know, there are other days I just need to be able to play like 2 hours a day. Yeah, I absolutely have no idea about online games whatsoever. Well, I'm weird, right? So I don't know why, but when it comes to PC games, I can't think of a single PC game that well, no, I can think of one. So I guess it depends, right? There are very few PC games, but I can think of a few where I like the story mode, and that's what draws me in. One example would be Skyrim, right? Skyrim doesn't have an online mode or anything. I guess there's Elder Scrolls Online, but I've never had any interest in it. Because as far as I know, I don't think Elder Scrolls Online is like actually truly open world. And that's the main thing I like about Skyrim, is just how open and accessible it is. But outside of that, I can't think of that many games on the PC I've played that have a story mode to them. Maybe Monster Hunter World, Skyrim. I guess I have RDR 2, but I haven't played it yet. I've got RDR 1 as well. But yeah, my main point is just that I think for me there's something I really enjoy about online gaming. Maybe it's just like the unpredictable nature of it. I don't know. There's just something I like about it. It feels like a form of socialization to me. Why are you up, LOL? Because my sleep schedule is fucked and I don't know how to fix it. I gotta run outside real quick. Oh my god, cat. Why are you like this? Sorry about that. The cat took the mic, dude. Yeah, that's fucking crazy. The cat stole the mic. Fucking crazy. Fucking crackhead. God, I can't have anything nice. No, Kitty, that's my papa. Fucking cat. Man, cats are wild. Don't blame that little bean. She's the one who took it. And she's in full crackhead mode right now. She's like, she's doing too much, as they, as they say in New Orleans. Seattle meetup, deep fat fried, roll call. If you're here and you're going, sign up for a membership just to tell me you're going. It's fucking $2, I think. I think my cheapest tier is like $3 after taxes or some shit. You can't control its zoomies? No, I can't. I certainly cannot, and I wouldn't try. It's just a sweet little thing. She is sweet. I'm not gonna lie. She's very sweet. She reminds me of in a lot of ways of my old Tuxie James. I think that's why my mom brought her home, honestly. Because I lost that poor boy when he was only 3. I hope so, but I have doubts about the actual viability of getting there. Yeah, no, that's valid. I mean, I know you guys have a lot on your plate and everything. Dude, I don't even know if I'll be able to get there, and, I've got a lot less on my plate, so, I don't know. I do intend to start, like, fundraising for it and talking about it, and, I've asked the guys, and they are cool with me selling tickets, over here, so I'm gonna try and, I'm gonna see if there's, like, 8 to 10 Phoebists that want to go to a deep fat fried meetup to kind of like hang out with this cool ass audience of neckbeards and feminists and crazy goth chicks and stoners and everything else. Meet the people that made me the content machine I am today. My hope is that by December I can hawk 10 tickets. And maybe if I can, who knows? Maybe if I can, they'll let me in for free or something. I'm kidding. I'm joking. I do need to text Glitch and ask him if he's going. Although the fact that he hasn't texted me is kind of worrying. I'll try to shill myself, even though I'm not as known to the boys. Since you're selling tickets, I assume you'll be the opening act then? No. No, I know that there are people in my community who have talked about wanting to hang out with me and stuff. And I know that a lot of my audience is on the West Coast. And I know that there's at least a few people who would be on the fence about going to a DFF meetup, but who would definitely go if I were there. And so I just think it's a good opportunity to get the boys some more sales and maybe have a, little smoking circle with some of my fans at the same time at some point before we get into the venue or whatever. I just think it'd be a cool opportunity for them to make a few extra sales and maybe get some extra cross-pollination. But no. In fact, I asked them about that, and Scotty basically said unequivocally no. Not unless I can get some videos of me performing in front of crowds so that he knows I'm legit, which I have to admit makes sense. He explained with Jareth Gawain and everything, and I get it. It just sucks because I don't really know. I know I don't really know how to get a hold of the one person that might... Yeah, dude, I don't know how to find him, man. That's the fucking fucked up thing. The fucked up thing is that there are videos that exist of me playing in front of crowds. I just don't know how to find them or get them. And so the only other thing I could do is like grind for like the next 3 months at trying to get like a few decent bar shows together. It's just like, it's, like when I'm not trying to actively focus my career on music, it's just too much shit to do, which is fine. I wasn't desperate for it, but I did think it would be kind of cool if they were doing New Orleans anyway, since it's so close. I'm fucking always selling myself as a Southern girl and everything. Plus, a lot of people in the audience love me, but whatever. I understand their reticence. Oh, it doesn't bother me. I'll say if it's guaranteed you get to go, you can definitely lodge in PDX with me and make it cheaper. It's a cop skip and a jump to Seattle. I could bring the guitars and jam out there. Yeah, true. True. Yeah, I wonder if the venue in Seattle will be more amenable to us playing music outside the venue than the venue in New Jersey was. The venue in New Jersey was not having it. That is the only set of bars in my whole fucking life that I have ever played outside of and gotten in trouble for. I can't think of any other time. I can't think of any other time. There's even been times when, like, somebody involved with the bar has come over and fetched me from some abandoned, storefront or a street corner and been like, hey, come over here to my bar. What are you doing busking over here? Ain't nobody over here. Come on over here. Add to the ambiance. I'll turn the deck music down for you. I've had that happen before. It was the weirdest shit to have, like, the opposite reaction in Jersey. That's pretty wild, because most venues don't care as long as you're literally not by the door. That's the thing. I didn't get it at all, especially because, like, they wanted to... I don't know, man. I don't want to bitch. I'm not trying to bitch. The thing that didn't make sense to me was, like, it was about their neighbors, right? It was concern was, we don't... Too loud neighbors, gotcha, but I feel like that crowd was pretty loud. And I feel like there's no way that the music coming out of a loud-ass metal bar like that would not have been a commensurate distraction. So, I'm not saying it made too much sense. I'm just saying I ain't bitching about it. It's because you're too good, obviously. Pied Pipering patrons out of the bar. I doubt it. I doubt it. I doubt it, but I do need to get my ducks in a row, because I definitely want to go to the Seattle meetup. Because me and Paul didn't even get to smoke last time. Like last time last time I went to a DFF meetup, we didn't even get to smoke together. And that was like one of my big goals, was to smoke with Paul Zigo. So, let me ask you this, Ignar. Is the weed better in Washington or Oregon? Probably had a certain policy they're enforcing, but it still doesn't completely make sense because I've looked the bar up and it literally looks like a punk metal bar in Portland. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but whatever. I ain't bitching. I ain't fucking questioning it. I'd say Oregon, but that is a bias. So what's the true answer? What, Seattle? I don't know. See, my thing is, I imagine that, like, the closer you get to Seattle and, like, the big metro areas, I imagine that the weed gets more expensive. That probably the quality isn't that different, but I imagine that it gets a lot more expensive if you're actually in the city. Because kind of what I'm thinking is that regardless of who I lodge with, because honestly, you know, lodging with you sounds fun too, but also, Kenny and I were talking about getting an Airbnb together, and that could be cool too. And there's no reason you couldn't come over there and spend the night. Um, you know, if you're just trying to have a sleepover with your girl Phoebes. But um, point is, what I'm thinking, weed strategy wise, is that my best bet would be to go to a small town that's big enough to have a couple of weed shops, um, big enough for there to be competition, but not big enough for like the cost of living to be super high, and get my cannabis from there. But what are you thinking? There's not that big a difference. It's just price variance because Oregon is cheaper overall on average. Shit, a Seattle Airbnb would be dope as fuck too. More adventure, the better. Yeah, I know, right? So I'd probably get the cannabis in Oregon then, depending on how much the price difference was. If we ended up lodging in Washington State, up in Seattle, and it was like a fucking 3 hour drive and a 3 hour drive back to go get cheap weed in fucking Oregon, but the price was like a difference in $20 between, like if it's a $50 ounce in Oregon, but it's a $70 ounce in Washington, nah, I'm just going to buy the $70 ounce. It also varies on dispos because some are more spendy than others. Yeah. And that's true across the country, bro. You really gotta look hard for the fucking down to earth dispensaries. I have to say, the Apple Storeification of, like, the plug is maybe the one negative consequence of legalization. There's a pretty cheap place in Mass called 253 Pharmacy, and it's so awesome. Nice. Right on. Right on. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to play it by ear and figure things out. I don't know. Man. Right now I have to get lodging, travel, and tickets lined up. I'm estimating that if I really want to make sure that I've got a decent budget set aside for this to pay for every side of it from my end, I'm convinced I'm going to need like at least 1,600, but maybe up to 2 grand. So I'm going to have to start saving. My average spending on weed is straight up between 10 to 30 bucks for half house. It's specific dispensary and such a chronic sense. And right on, right on. Let's move on to a different topic though, because I don't want YouTube to flag this stream or something, and I feel like we've been on the, 420 Blaze It topic for a bit long at this point. But yeah, no, I get you. That's good to know. That's good to know. My canna budget can definitely be a lot cheaper than I was expecting. If I set a canna budget of 500 bucks, I'll have more than enough to get everything I want. Plus gifts. Well, I do got one more 420 Blaze It question. Can you get like the good edibles in Oregon? Can you get the good the good edibles in Oregon? I'm curious to see how things change with the new scheduling. Well, I think it's definitely going to have to become more relaxed. But how soon will that happen? That's the real question. Oh, definitely. But the homemade is still way better than the dispo stuff. Well. See, but the problem is, if we get a fucking Airbnb, then they're like, probably rules on. Of course, I guess it's not technically smoking if you're just decarbing weed in the house, in an oven. It's not smoking. You could air the house out. So I guess there might be an option. I guess there might be an opportunity there. Because I can certainly make a good edible. Especially now that I understand cooking thermometers and stuff. Now that I understand cooking thermometers and shit, I can make a really good edible without scorching the oil or the butter or whatever else. Dispo stuff is regulated too much in my opinion for edibles at least. So what is it? Got like a 100 milligram cap. Firecrackers, easiest edible. Ritz crackers, spray cheese, stuff between the cheese. It stops it from vaporizing in the oven. If I can get a prescription with a CDL, yeah, that'd be nice. Oh, that'd be really nice, for sure. What was the other thing I was gonna say? EB Phoebe. I'm not EB Phoebe. I'm perfectly awake Phoebe. So what I'm getting here is that you like grind it down like the weed you're gonna. That doesn't make no sense. I'm sorry. I don't think that makes any sense, because that doesn't jive with how I understand edibles to work. Because my understanding was that you had to. Hold on, let me look this shit up. Let me just ask fucking Google. How long does weed have to be decarbed in the oven to be used in edibles? So it needs to be baked for 30 to 45 minutes at 220 to 245. And you can do lower temperatures, but it takes longer. So, like, I don't know, man. I was always under the impression that that's what you had to do to, like, grind it out real fine and then spread it over a baking sheet. And then you had to bake that shit at, like, 240 for, like, half an hour. And you had to shake it once in the middle to make really sure that you're doing it right. And, like, then, from what I understand, you're supposed to, like, to extract the maximum good out of it, you're supposed to, like, steep it in a warm oil for anywhere between 2 to 8 hours to really extract all the value from it. But I'm sure there are other ways to do it that are easier. I just wonder if they have the same, potency. Sleepy. I don't have the patience for cooking with it when it's already consumption ready. See, I do. I definitely do. I like to make, whenever I've got, a place where I can do it, I like to make can of butter. I really like to make can of butter. Oh. And a good can of butter when it's done right. Oh my god. It's not always like the greatest tasting thing, but boy does it add a punch. I've made, using can of butter and cannabis infused coconut oil, I have made blackened chicken fettuccine alfredo. I've made fried chicken. Let's see, I've made gravies with it. Made mac and cheese with it. I wonder if, like, in places where it's been legal for a long time, I wonder if I can just get pre-made can of butter that's ready to be used in different stuff. I wonder if that's a thing. Definitely does. Desi definitely does as well. Hell yeah. Okay, well now I need to try this. All the things you list. I know, right? I know. Yes. You've got to have me make some infused stuff for y'all at some point. Honestly, whatever the next meetup you guys come to, I think it would be cool if, like, provided you guys are able to, like, stay at a place or whatever for a couple days, I think it'd be cool if we did, like, a little dinner together or something. I think that'd be neat. Phoebe's famous pharma treats. For sure, we gotta hang out. Yes, I definitely agree. Sorry, I'm just sitting here thinking about all the fat ass foods I could make for everybody. Oh my god, I could blow you guys' fucking minds. Ugh. I am like an expert level fat ass cook. I'm just thinking like, ooh. Either blackened chicken fettuccine alfredo or blackened chicken alfredo pizza. Alfredo pizza is a lot harder to make, but it's arguably more rewarding to eat. Plus, you get like a free breadstick at the end of every slice. I don't know if I can God, Alfredo is my favorite thing ever. I've got a really good Alfredo recipe that me and my family use, and everybody that tastes our Alfredo says they fucking love it. So I think it's a winning recipe, definitely. And it's only elevated by using can of butter in it. But honestly, even without, it's one of my favorite things to eat here around the house. Honestly, it's one of my comfort foods. A little expensive to make if you don't keep the ingredients on hand or buy them in bulk and freeze them or somehow, or something like that. But, you know, what are you gonna do? Anyway, it's getting rather late in the stream. It is getting rather late in the stream, but I don't know. I don't know what I want to talk about. Desi makes a good homemade. You gotta have a cook-off so I can stuff my judge. Yeah, definitely. I think that would be awesome. Yes, that would be so cool. And especially if it happened to happen around the time of a meetup, we could literally like promote it in the Discord and everything, and probably get people to show up to eat the leftovers. Like, hey, if you're in the Seattle area, alrighty, we're good. We're back. Oh, hi. Yeah, I know, right? We back. We back. Phone is plugged up and everything. I don't know how long we back for, but we back for now. Here pretty soon, before it gets too much later in the day, I'm going to need to get off here, eat something, feed the animals. I'll probably feed the animals before I eat something. That way, if I decide that I'm too sleepy after I eat something, I can just go to bed. But I might decide to do a gaming stream or something. I don't know. There's things I need to do today. There's really things that I need to do today. Will I get to them? Will I do them? We'll have to see. I hope so. I hope so. I need to push myself. I need to peer pressure myself into compliance in that regard. I really do. I really do. Dang old Max stealing kitty, tell you what. Yeah. She's chilling now. She's quiet and calm as a mouse now. Almost makes me think she was aware of the people that were in here and watching her tomfoolery. Can't believe you tried to steal my mic, bro. That was ratchet. That was for real ratchet. That was ratchet for real, for real. For real. FR. You gotta check out some of the first hour of the latest KFTS stream. My co-host is visibly done with my nonsense by the end. I love that. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Kyle from the Shire. For real, OG. Yeah. Yeah, dog. What's up, G? Yeah, for real, dough. You ever wanted the sensation of being shook? Family ding dong, yeah. Let's just fill up our vocabulary with lame ass words from yesteryear, why don't we? I don't wanna be your fucking dog that you drag around. Collar on my neck, tied to a pole. Tie me in the freezing cold. I don't wanna be your little pet. Sorry, I'm just like zoned. What? Butterfly in the sky, I can get twice as high. Take a look, it rolls up good. Weed is great though. That's funny. Take a look, it rolls up good. Weed is great though. Soft rhymes, Kyle. Soft rhymes. Not that there's anything actually wrong with soft rhymes. I think people discriminate against soft rhymes too much. Yep, that is my new stance, and I'm sticking by it. People discriminate against soft rhymes too much. Too much. Too much. Morning shower in spots, followed by a couple of showers and a heavy thunderstorm this afternoon. So it's supposed to rain basically all day. I don't know how much I believe that. But I suppose we'll see. Shaping up to be a pretty fucking rainy week, though, and we need it, so it'd be nice if it did. Would be nice if it did. There's lots of stuff that could regrow if the ground would just stay moist for a week or so. I am a Midwest farmer, make a living off the land. I ride a John Deere tractor, I'm a liberated man. But the rain, it hasn't fallen since the middle of July. And if it don't come soon, my crops will die. Well, the banker says he likes me, but there's nothing he can do. He tells me that he's coming, but the clouds are coming too. He ain't my friend, and I'll ride again. We've been way off with rain predictions over here as well. Yeah. I mean, it's not even that I don't, like, I want it to happen. I want the rain. I just don't believe it because, like, their predictions have been so all over the map and so unreliable. Like, I feel like there's been an actual decrease in the quality of, like, necessary services like weather reporting and shit since Trump took office. And since the Doge cuts and shit like that. I feel like there really has been, like, a noticeable drop in the reliability of these services. And they're supposed to be, like, pretty necessary for the operation of society, you know? Like, we're supposed to rely on these to, you know, dictate when our, we're supposed to use these things to dictate when our air traffic patterns, you get what I'm trying to say here? Probably not. I'm explaining it badly. Weather is important, okay? You don't know if you can take off in an airplane if you don't know the wind conditions, the rain conditions. It's harder to plan a road trip or any kind of long cross-country trip of any kind if you don't know the weather conditions or if the weather conditions are unreliable for some reason. Freight can get disturbed and fucked up in transit if, you know, it hits the wrong weather conditions. And, you know, like, these big trucking companies are supposed to, like, schedule their shit partly and, like, plan their routes out partly on the basis of weather. So, like, the fact that there seems to be, like, a noticeable drop in the reliability of these weather services is making me feel like there's been some kind of, like, concerted cut to their ability to actually provide good information. Well, they absolutely did cut, they did absolutely cut funding for weather balloons, yeah. So that almost certainly explains the bulk majority of it. They've got less resources to capture the data with. There's probably less resources for maintenance too, I would guess. There's probably been massive cuts to the maintenance budgets of NOAA and a lot of these organizations. Like, the Trump model is pretty much privatize everything, like every fascist model is. Privatize everything, nationalize what you can't privatize, but, you know, bring in, like, fucking state-run enterprise, not even state-run enterprise, but, like, state-influenced, incestuously connected enterprise to run the stuff that you can't just give to it outright. And so like what I'm trying to say that here is that like there are private weather orgs that I guarantee you are holding up relatively okay, despite all the Trump cuts, because they're, reliant on a private monitoring network. And I think that that's probably the point. You hear about the new scam, Freedom gas stations or some shit? LOL. Probably bringing back good old leaded gas for that one. Oh, God. Well, you know what I think this is? It's two things. Well, it's probably a lot more than two things, but it's like Donald Trump has realized that he can make money off of his supporters by creating this weird, like, microeconomy for them. And it's happening all over the country in a bunch of different ways. But basically, like, it's been happening, I think, for a number of years. Probably not under the direction of Trump, just probably, I think it was like instituted by people that now surround the Trump administration that have helped him come to power, but not him himself. It's like Alex Jones and Glenn Beck and Tucker Carlson and pretty much anybody else who's ever shilled merch and fucking supplements and kits and shit that are geared towards right-wing audiences. The idea of highly politicized revenue streams kind of gave birth to this notion that has been building, that I think the Trump family has built up a lot more over the last few months, that you can have like another economy within the American economy that is basically just for right-wingers. It's basically like an entire microeconomy built on the idea of vice signaling. And I guarantee you, the vast majority of people who go to these fucking Freedom gas stations or whatever they are still going to go to other gas stations most of the time. But boy, are they going to make a show out of going to whatever one comes to the nearest city near them. And the funny thing is it's probably not even going to be, like, it's going to be sold as, we're bringing so many jobs back to America, folks. We're building so many gas stations. You know what it's going to be? A bunch of fucking old gas stations owned by some other company that Trump or his company or some shit like that, or one of his connected companies, one of his acolytes or whatever, just buys up some failing fucking gas station franchisee. Bone broth. Yeah, literally. Bone broth basically created the right-wing microeconomy, where if you are a right-winger who wants to be performative about everything you buy and just buy things that validate your own political ideals, there is an item for you. There, literally anything you might want. Coffee, Black Rifle Coffee Company. Razors, I don't remember what the one is there. I don't remember which one is that. Maga razor company. There's, you know, dude wipes were being fucking sold for a while as like kind of a manosphere thing, and then they started, you know, having more publicly relatable imagery and shit. But hell, there are even car companies that are starting to try and like cater to that. You know, Tesla, for example, headed up by Elon Musk. If you want a fucking car and you want to feel fucking like you're vice signaling when you buy it, buy you a Tesla. Boring razors, the unregulated supplement industry is wild. Yes, it really is. The unregulated supplement industry is, like, uniquely wild. But honestly, so is the fucking weird, like, political grifter with their own fucking super politicized merch. Just so that you're not, you know, like, you're not given to those dirty commie fucking companies that love the gay flag when, in reality, they just had a gay flag for a couple of Pride summers because it was worth it at the time for the PR. That's all it ever was. But you can pay extra for some products if you want to fucking show how right-wing you are. Black Rifle Coffee, yep, I mentioned that one. Anti-woke coffee is a weird thing to say. It sounds like melatonin-infused decaf coffee. Yeah, I know. It does. Yeah. Anti-woke coffee. Literally, it sounds like coffee that would make you go to sleep. Which would actually be a really successful product, and I don't know why anyone hasn't come up with it or distributed it widely yet. You know, because that would be genuinely something a lot of people would actually enjoy. Like, if you could make a delicious decaf cold brew that also had some, you know, maybe some, like, I don't know, some of those things that help you sleep, some of those additives that help you sleep, but that are legal to add to a food as long as you... I don't know, though. See, that's the weird thing, right? If a food makes you feel a certain way reliably, and it makes you feel too good or too specific in some way, then it has to be sold as a drug, not as a food, even if it is more of a food than a drug. So I don't know how that would be sold, but you know what? Someone should do it. Someone should make it. Fucking anti-wake coffee. Sleepy time coffee. Do it, Celestial Seasonings. Do it now. Actually, Sleepy Time decaf coffee bags with little, you know, with some floral notes in it might not actually be too bad. Somebody call up Tim Heidecker in the new InfoWars. Let's go. I know, right? Well, then Alfredo is a drug for me. Unironically, we should pitch that to Tim Heidecker. That would be funny. Tim Heidecker. Anyway, well then Alfredo is a drug for me. Yeah, Alfredo makes me sleepy after I eat too much of it. Oh my god. Does Desi make hers like a blackened chicken fettuccine Alfredo? Is it like, do you guys do steak with your Alfredo? What's the protein in your Alfredo, and how does she do it? I was gonna say, yeah, they do tea that's advertised like that. Yeah. Yeah, you can do teas that are advertised that way, and I don't know why. Come to think of it, that's really funny. I don't know why. Of course, you know what? maybe that's not true either, because energy drinks are able to be sold. And if you can sell an energy drink, you can damn well sell a fucking non-energy drink, a de-energizing drink, so fuck it. Chicken for sure. Okay, so chicken, how spicy is it? Is it like Nolan spicy, like got a good kick to it but not too bad? Or is it like not spicy, more savory? Is it like Italian grilled? Is it, what kind of chicken we talking about here? Breaded, fried? Because I think the best way to do it is just to fry that chicken off in some fucking olive oil. You season it heavy, both sides, throw it on in there, then flip it. And then you flip it back and forth, being careful not to burn it until it gets to an internal temperature of 165. Melatonin drinks were popular for a while. No, not spicy. Either blackened style or fried tendies. Nice, okay. So yeah, we've got very similar styles of chicken Alfredo, so it really would be delicious to go head to head and see which of us ends up better. Because I got tricks for mine. I got tricks. One of my tricks is buying, like, Wisconsin Parm if I can. Like, buying a good American, like, mock-up Parm cheese, but one that's not pre-grated, just like a slice of it. I feel like that tends to yield pretty good results. And also, you know, if I've got access to my fresh herbs and stuff, I like to throw those in there. That homemade sauce is so goddamn good. It really is. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get off here. I fucking talked myself to food to death, and I'm so hungry. I'm gonna go feed my animals and then feed my damn self. So, peace out, you guys. Thank you guys for hanging out. Peace the fuck out, as a wise person once said. Later. Thanks for hanging out. Bye. Ooh, yes.